broadcasting. So we start. Dear friends and dear colleagues, so now we start our second MIL talk in our sets, in which we discussing the media education strategy of the MIL city approaches. We do this set of webinar in memory and in honor of our colleague Irina Zhilavskaya, who left us last month. The reason is COVID-19. So in this case, knowing the situation now in Moscow, I would like to ask you everybody, please make the vaccination. So the scenario of our meal talk. So we will speak today about the very interesting and very important things. We will speak today about the educational space in media literate city. We will speak and we will discuss with our wonderful and outstanding speakers the opportunities of development of educational space in media literated city. First of all, I would like to say that the approach of media literate city, there is the UNESCO approach about the new form of city. You know that UNESCO has different approaches to the understanding what is city. There are smart cities, innovation cities, so on and so forth. So today we will speak about the UNESCO approach, what is media literate city. In a whole, we will speak about media literacy, digital literacy, we will speak about communication, and we will speak about the educational space in media literate city. So there is the main idea of our meal talk today. And with great pleasure and with great honor, I would like to introduce our outstanding speakers. So, Felipe Chimbos Ortiz, Regional Representative for Latin America and the Caribbean of UNESCO MIL Alliance. Juan Narbona, Associate Professor of Digital Communication and Information Markets, Pontifical University of the Holy Cross, Italy. Anna Kozlovska, Assistant Professor, Reference Librarian, University of Illinois, Chicago, USA. Emmanuel Camille Kunako, Director of Research and Partnership, PFIMI, Associate Researcher, UNESCO Chair of Communication and Technologies for Development, University of Quebec, Canada. And Margarita Yasuda, President of Business Professional Women, Vice President of Women for Water Partnership, Brazil. So, host and moderator of today's meal talk is me, Veronica Yarnik. I'm leader of UNESCO Global Go and Town Initiative, Associate Professor of Russian State University for Humanities. Today we are speaking from different countries, different continents, and different cities, but we will speak about one main idea, the opportunities and evaluation of educational space in media literate city. And the first part of our meal talk is about the opportunities and priorities. So during this part, we will discuss the place of education in modern media literate city, especially in the post-pandemic world. So let's speak about near future and about the importance of education practically in modern urban space. And our first question, which I would like to discuss with our outstanding experts, is what priorities of development or support could be in educational space in media literate city in the post-pandemic world. So let's speak about near or far future. And we start our talk with Felipe Chibos-Ortiz. Please, you are the first Felipe today.
Thank you so much, my dear colleagues. For me, it's a pleasure to be here. It's necessary for me to speak. My words today are dedicated to our colleague, Irina Silaskaya. She was an inspiring scientist. I am very happy to be here with my dear colleagues, and especially with you, Veronica, and this marvelous audience. My answer to the first question is, post-pandemic priorities are, in my opinion, citizen education, that you teach citizen rights, new values and behaviors, teach how to interact in virtual teams, teach to the new skills that the new professions will require, teaching through games and using playful elements. Trained influencers, bloggers, YouTubers are not teachers in MIL. Train in ethics, respect, and how to diagnose and transcend cultural barriers to communication, like sexism, religion, and others, with all the stakeholders of the city. Learn to work and grow in the networks with all the city's stakeholders, including companies, enterprise, startups, and other non-traditional education channels and communication channels. Teach ethic, more important, the ethic, on the internet and the appropriate of information and personal data of the person and to of the companies. Teach to innovate constantly and not for a specific situation. Teach the principles of MIL for the 5 agents of social innovation: governments, academia, private companies, artists, and ordinary citizens. This, in my opinion, this framework is very important to understanding the actual situation and the future.
Thank you so much, Felipe. It's a really interesting view. I would like to say that today we have the very interesting situation, because today among our speakers, from one side, there are absolutely professionals in media education and in education, but also today with us, we have the experts and speakers from the social space and from the social association. So in this case, I would like to ask Margarita Yasuda from Brazil. Please, what do you think about prioritize of development or support of education in the far future or near future? Margarita, please switch on the microphone.
Well, I'd like firstly to thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very delighted to be with all of you in this webinar, international webinar. Well, I would like to explain who we are, this International Women's Organization. The International Federation of BPW, Business and Professional Women, was founded in 1930 with affiliates in over 98 countries, representing around 30,000 members worldwide. And I'm very pleased to be in Russia, I think 3 years ago, to attend as a speaker in an International Women's Forum Summit. Well, BPW holds consultative status with the United Nations ECOSOC since 1947, with active representations at UN agencies such as ILO, WHO, UNESCO, UNICEF, ITC, FAO, and others. And BPW Brazil is affiliated to the International Federation since 1987, and currently we are represented in 23 cities from north to south of Brazil. And BPW develops the business leadership potential of women on all levels through mentoring, networking, skill building, and economic empowerment programs, implementation of projects around the world. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about the impact of education on performance and the success of women entrepreneurs. I'm representing business and professional women. I'm very strongly aware of challenges and difficulties faced by women to be successful in entrepreneurship after post-pandemic. And I think how education can create opportunities or also obstacles to women to succeed as entrepreneur. In the educational process, formal and informal, we will convey values and beliefs to children and young people. Even before childbirth, there are already expectations about its future according to their gender. From this perspective, there are many prejudices, discriminations, and barriers that can be transmitted through education, such as those characteristics linked to traditionally considered appropriate behavior for a girl. Girls play with dolls, take care of the babies, plays as teachers, nurses, mothers at home. Boys play with cars, tools, machines, outdoor games. And most of women have been raised with the idea of a stable, well-paying job as a professional of healthcare, education, attendance, human science, with limited projection and lower salary, and then to be pushed into the whole labyrinth of a marriage, lower salaries, children, and daily household tasks, while male students are expected and directed to careers in the field of exact science, valued in the market and usually better paid. In early age, it's common for assertive girls with leadership to be called bossy or dominating. It's no wonder then the university, Carnegie Mellon University, found that almost 57% of graduating professional students firmly negotiated their initial salary, but only 7% of women did it. Women usually are shy from asking for what they deserve or for making their voice heard for the fear and being judged and labeled. However, there are many examples of women being their own bosses and leading innovative business entirely on their own. But the numbers are not that encouraging. Women are also found to take lower risk than men. It's important that we raise a generation of youngsters who are brave enough to take risk, follow their passions, and strive strive to their positions, and we have to start to inspire young people to realize that they can be financially independent. Entrepreneur platform can stimulate and motivate the female student as a career to take up entrepreneurship as a career option, to launch their own business. And in many countries like Brazil, women become entrepreneurs out of necessity, but they face difficulties and failures due to lack of better education and training focused more in business. Women entrepreneurs lack of time for updating their skills, and they also find hard to access to finance more information development program in technology and the market. Getting appropriate education and training will certainly help women with find sources of innovative ideas and converting these ideas into enterprises. Entrepreneurship is still expected to be a male-dominated field, and it may be difficult to gain the society support for women entrepreneurs. I think there are always gaps in the social structure that can be used for transformations, changes, development, and growth. And associations such as BPW, for example, among others, can effectively contribute and give support to women to achieve soft skills, to overcome and succeed professionals and entrepreneurs. And in consequence, everyone will be benefit with a better society in a MIL city. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Margarita. It's really very important to think about the role of women in our modern world, in post-pandemic world, of course. So I would like to ask the ideas and thoughts about the priorities and perspectives maybe of development of educational space in media literate city. So I would like to ask to tell us about his ideas, Professor Juan Narbona from Pontifical University of the Holy Cross, please.
Thank you. Thanks, Veronica, for having me here, for your invitation. And well, I'm a professor at a School of Communications here in Rome, and it depends on the Holy See. And well, our mission is to teach communications to students, mainly linked to religious institutions. So this is one of many initiatives promoted in the religious sphere to foster and to improve communications as a service to society. So when thinking about this meeting and talking about educational spaces and information, I realized that the physical geography of many cities reveals the importance of religion in the lives of their citizens. In many cases, indirectly, but at least in Europe, I don't know in many other continents, but at least in Europe, frequently the church or temple is located in the physical center of the urban space, or in a relevant place, at least in a relevant place, as if it were the soul of that city, of that place. Many other institutions like universities, schools, or social centers have also a religious root. So even if you are not a believer, it is necessary, in my opinion, to acknowledge that religious values give shape to our cities, to our history, to public opinion, public debates, and so on. So although cities have become more complex now, a crisis situation such as a pandemic has highlighted again the importance of religious beliefs and religious information. Locked up at home, spirituality has returned to the center of many people's lives, thanks to digital connections. And this is a new way that many religious institutions have found to reach their people. So many people have looked for the internet for spiritual support to overcome this pandemic. So in my opinion, this phenomenon reveals that in order to understand the values that move the citizens of any city, we cannot do without the religious dimension. Less present perhaps in public life than before, at least in some countries, but still very influential in the lives of individuals and in the way we see the world, the news, the social conflicts, and so on. So, for example, Professor Chivas spoke before about the need for ethics. So, well, religious centers are a source for thinking about ethics and social ethics. Well, speaking about communication, we can see religious communities as a positive resource, for example, to fight against fake news or polarization. I live, as you know, I live in Rome, and I was here when Pope Francis organized a religious event to pray in the worst moment of the pandemic in March last year, I think, 27 March. And it was broadcasted in television and through social media. Well, for many people, especially old people, that was a clear signal that we need to take the pandemic seriously, okay? Until that moment, they doubted. But when the Pope was praying for that, well, for them, that was a good source of information for a social problem. Many people found also consolation in that religious service. And in the following days, also many religious pastors gave many advices to follow to the people, to the faithful, to follow the social rules linked to the to prevent the spreading of the pandemic as an act of justice, social justice, and a duty with society. So religious authority and communication played in that occasion an important role in the life of many cities. So my main proposal would be to take into consideration religious institutions and realities as educational actors in the field of communication and social relationships, because they are interconnecting citizens. And now in this post-pandemic world, we are craving for connections. So these religious centers are a special place to foster this connection. So it can be a special place and a special way to promote positive values, like, for example, critical thinking, cooperation in society, tolerance with others. Well, because many religions have been doing so for centuries, with many mistakes, of course, but especially the final result is positive. So I think this is all by me, and we could discuss more in the second part of this meeting. Thank you.
Surely, thank you so much. So now I would like to ask Anna Kozlovska, assistant professor and reference librarian, University of Illinois. So what do you think about the priorities and prospects of the education, the development of education in post-pandemic world?
Sure. So good morning, everyone. And thank you so much, Veronica, for this invitation. So I will be speaking from a perspective of an educator in higher education system, but also a person coming from Chicago, and what I have seen, in terms of the context of the city of Chicago. So I would say like the priorities that would need to be addressed immediately, that would be spatial inequality within the city, and also the impact on education that the pandemic had, especially on young people, of course, but also many others. So in terms of the spatial inequality, so in the city that I live in Chicago, communities of colors were disproportionately affected by the pandemic. It did not happen only in Chicago. We can see that also in other places. However, just to paint a picture, only 30% of Chicago population is Black. However, in terms of the COVID deaths, 72% are Black residents of Chicago. So you can see the university that I come from, it's at the forefront of conducting, research in terms of the impact of COVID-19 on the city itself. But you can see this incredible spatial discrepancy in terms of the COVID cases and the COVID deaths. And it also goes with the impact on education, because again, especially the students of color were the ones who were the most affected by the pandemic. I'm not saying that they were the only ones. However, we need to also remember that, that the entire situation did not affect everyone equally. And it was due to a variety of reasons. So whether that would be, pertaining to infrastructure, so such as, like lacking the computers or sharing one computer by many students, unstable internet connection, lack of appropriate spaces at home, because again, during especially the lockdowns, we lost the space in classroom and we had to move it to house. So obviously not all of the children had appropriate conditions. And the same thing goes with the parental supervision. So due to unemployment, the lack of employment stability, and things of that nature, the situation was further exacerbated. Another thing in terms of especially this post-COVID, reality. So all of the things that I have mentioned, they are not new. They have been going on for centuries, I would even say, not for, the last decades, but for centuries. However, I think, that the COVID situation kind of put light on those already existing inequalities and also exacerbated the current situation. In terms of the impact of education, I think it will be really important to address this kind of balance between the in-person and online education. So in terms of the in-person, we know that many students suffer from the lack of connection, lack of contact with their peers. And thankfully, we are slowly, at least here in the United States, we are returning to in-person education. However, we also need to remember that many students thrived in online education environment, and also rethinking what is the place of online education, because there are a lot of stereotypes surrounding online education, such as that the teachers and students are taking their classes, in PJs, or that online education is not an education and we necessarily need to be in the same space for learning to take place, or if the students are not forced to come to classroom, that means they do nothing. So like all of those stereotypes that are so prevalent that would need to be addressed. Another thing is the high flex model that becomes very popular here in the United States. So kind of like combining online education, so doing simultaneously online education and in-person education, which is very taxing for faculty, because maybe the model itself has a great potential to work well, but at the same time, at least in the context of the United States, but I know that it also happens in many other places, faculty do not receive sufficient support to introduce this kind of model. And finally, one other problem that I see being very apparent during this time of pandemic, and we'll need to deal with in post-pandemic reality, are the issues with online proctoring. Okay, so with the examination, with assessment, basically. So according to the April EDUCAUSE poll, 55% of institutions in the United States of higher education were using online or remote proctoring services. And another 23% were considering or planning to use them. So then again, it raises the issues of student privacy because the software, this outsourcing of assessment, to private corporation, of course, it goes with some infringement on privacy because the students' computers are monitored. Also, the artificial intelligence technology is used to surveil the students. So all of those things, I think, will need to be addressed. And it goes with also rethinking the role of the students and how we think of education and of students. Because I believe that, hiring companies to monitor students' performance on exams, it's kind of like, believing that all of that students are lazy, unprepared, that they need to be checked, controlled, so forth, so on, which we often hear about that. So I think, like challenging the stereotype and rethinking, like, okay, is that really, is the control kind of the main argument behind the education, or perhaps there should be some other mechanism of motivation for students to perform well. So as I said, I would say that the two most important priorities, addressing spatial inequality and also, impact on education. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna, for so emotional speech, I would like to say. So, and now I think that we would like to hear the ideas and opinion of Emmanuel Kunako, Director of Research and Partnership, PFIM. If I'm right with the pronunciation of the organization, but I'm sure in pronunciation that Emmanuel Kunako is Associate Researcher, UNESCO Chair of Communication and Technologies for Development, Canada. So you are welcome, please.
Thank you so much. I'm very glad to share this moment with you, and I will thank Mr. Professor Felipe for everything he has done and he is doing for us, for the world. Yes, my opinion of on this first question is some. We know that coronavirus pandemic has forced the entire world to use media and internet to do everything, as well in towns and in the village. Through this experience, it will be very essential for MIL cities to make itself known through field and concrete action. To achieve this goal, MIL cities need to create focus group per country to inform, raise, and train population on MIL cities concept, because it is a new concept. If we think about education, we need to let people know what MIL city is. These strategies will prevent the project from being forgotten, like MIL concept launched in 1982, but which is new in many countries today. If we talk about major education literacy in Africa, many countries will tell you that they don't know what you mean. So if you want to talk about education, we need to spread first MIL cities concept in our countries. Third, MIL city field action must be oriented firstly towards 5 categories of most dynamic communities. Youth association to carry the project. Second, school, motivate students and teachers to focus on male. Universities for workshop, we know in developed country, we know how is male, but in developing country, they don't know how to think about measure and information literacy. First, it is very important to spread the concept in our countries. Universities must know the role of male before thinking about education, because the new education today is not focused on what teachers used to do. Students are the center of the education, so they must know how we mean about MIL and MIL cities. And we have also to motivate major industries like private and public TV station, radio, network to cover MIL cities action everywhere we have action. I know that Professor Philippe is active in it, but we need to invite more major professionals in our meetings to spread this, the project. By experience, young people are the main users of online media, and their influence are huge. So we need to motivate them. We need to invite them to be the center of major literacy in cities today. They must be involved in training and animation program to disseminate the action of MIL cities around themselves. It is very important also to multiply regional think tank workshop for experts who can become project ambassador in their country, communities, or schools. And we need also, MIL cities need to create a cluster of community of practice on selected MIL cities team or indicator. And it is also important to motivate local incubator in collaboration with UNESCO MIL cities to spread the project everywhere they are. For example, now I'm mobilizing people in Africa to create African regional MIL cities in order to disseminate the concept and transform it into action. So, in my opinion, we need to focus on MIL cities first in our school, in our communities, in our universities, so they can learn more about the concept and spread it everywhere they are. So we cannot talk about education if people don't know the meaning of MIL cities. This is my suggestion.
Thank you so much. Really, it's really interesting, and I would like to say that it's very interesting point of view on MIL city approach, and I would like to say that it's very complex suggestion about the mixture of media literacy, digital literacy, and it's very important about the community. So, in conclusion of small conclusion in the first part, I would like to say that we spoke about priorities and prospects, and in this case we spoke about the following things. The first of all, it's ethic approach. So it's necessary to teach ethic, as Philippe told, for example, or it's necessary to speak and to develop ethic, as Professor Narbona told us. So it's different way, but the first part and very important part I would like to underline, it's the ethic. Then I think that you told us about the opportunities for women, as Margarida told us. And I think that it's very interesting thought that which Margarita had told us, that it's the expectation of education for women, but also it's a very interesting thought that entrepreneurship as opportunity for women. It's simply another way of development, and of course another way of education, and of course it's opportunity, and I would like to underline it. Also, I think that it's very important that we talk about the information and communication, and also we talk together about the digital communication and community. So the community of professionals, the community of people, the community of media literacy practices, for example, and so on and so forth. But nevertheless, we spoke about the development of community. Also, I would like to say that it's very interesting idea which Anna told us about the new flexible model of education. And if I'm right, it's necessary to highlight and underline the word flexible, new flexibility in the model of education, and understanding the questions and understanding the ideas of students. Also, as Professor Emmanuel Kunako, I hope that I'm right in pronunciation. I'm sorry, really, but it's really very, very important idea that it's necessary to understand the real opportunities and positive features of online education, and of course the focus on the information and coordination. So the knowledge, it's the value of education, and the value of education in tomorrow life practically. So it's really interesting, and it's really very important to speak about ways and directions of development. But now let's speak about another thing. Let's speak about the not simply about educational space in media literate city, but also let's speak how can we measure from different ways, from different points of view. So in what way can we evaluate the educational space in media literate city? Okay, today media literate city, or tomorrow, or far tomorrow media literate city. So what main metrics would we use for evaluation? Maybe not exact metrics as percentage, quantity, or something else, but together let's think about the opportunities of evaluation of educational space, because I would like to again to underline that educational space now, not simply the educational space, it's the mixture of education, communication, working with community, so on and so forth. It's absolutely complex sector which involve in the development many sectors from urban space all over the world. So in this case, you have 3 or 4 minutes for your sharing your ideas, thoughts, suggestions, so on and so forth. And now I would like to suggest to start our discussion. So Margarita, please. And also, I would like to underline that we have no questions from our audience just now, but we have many greetings from the, just a moment, I I forgot. So I'm sorry, but for the Business Professional Women Association, I would like to say that, Margarita, we have so many your fans in in YouTube channel and also on Facebook page. So let's start our discussion. What metrics would you see?
Well, when I think about post-pandemic world and for MIL cities, I think it's very important to think, especially in Brazil, when we have more than 4% of families supported by women. And in this period of pandemic, a lot of women lost their jobs. And I can see how difficult will be for them to get jobs. So this new approach, this new city should bring opportunities, how to get jobs or open or have their own jobs, own business. And I think it's very important, this online and personal presential education for women, because with online education, women can have access to training and upgrading their skills, being in their own at home and anytime they have. And personal presential education is very important for women because they can start having networking, exchange experiences, and maybe have opportunities. And this space that can be open for from the MIL cities is a space not only for women entrepreneurs, but for young people to have a model of women who succeed as entrepreneurs. And this space that can be created by the public, by the government, can generate more ideas, innovative experiences, and maybe create opportunities for this young generation. And I think it's very important for the youngster to exchange ideas with the senior women, succeeded women, because they can have an example, and also to think about skills needed for to start a business. Okay, that is my opinion about post-pandemic world.
Thank you so much. It's really interesting to speak about new groups and new categories in the educational space in media literate city. Okay, wonderful. So now, please, Emmanuel Kunako, please, your opinion about the opportunities for evaluation of educational space.
Okay, thank you for this question. In my humble opinion, it is very important to do an annual or sectorial programming evaluation project that MIL City can want to do. If we take, for example, ethical dimension, MIL City must develop counter-assessment projects to be more productive. If we take an ethical dimension of media use, for example, we can design a structured survey on this variable in collaboration with a specialist in media ethics. It allows MIL cities to develop a current expertise on each issue. If we take a country, for example, this single indicator can be assessed by several categories of individuals: youth people, adults, schools, and institutions. This approach makes it possible to deepen knowledge of the appropriation of this indicator at the level of the whole country. The advantage of that is the advantage of this kind of I am searching the word. This advantage will help MIL cities to publish white books on each topic on a global scale. Another practical method is the creation of MIL cities label competition. This is an annual competition that verifies the level of practice of MIL cities objective in a country or community. This label can be developed in municipality or cities. The cities is working on criteria for participating in competition. The competition can be launched at the start of the year for 6 months, and after, the specialist of MIL City will evaluate the competitor and give them prize. When I was in France, we have organized a type of competition to evaluate the appropriation of internet in the country. And that allow countries or communities to do more in the sector. If we think today about MIL cities, how we can evaluate? We can evaluate by many strategies. So, MIL City Label Competition Prize is a suggestion for me for Professor Felipe to do in every country. At the end of the year, we will evaluate by launching a competition to know which country or which community has done more than other. This is what I can share now.
Thank you so much. It's really very interesting suggestion and proposal, I would like to say, because the competition is competition practically, as the very famous famous movie, it seems to me, or somebody of the very many years famous group song. It was the thing, the life is life. So the competition is competition. Okay, now I would like to ask Anna, what do you think about the process of evaluation of educational space in media literate city, and in what way can we evaluate it, maybe?
This is a fantastic question, Veronica, because I feel that there is a lot of opportunity that could be done. But at the same time, I wanted to address, some of the shortcomings, because based on my experience and knowledge, it's mostly we focus on what is quantifiable. So we are looking at the number of schools. We are looking at this scores of the tests, the numbers of libraries, ratio teacher per student, GPA, so forth, so on. So this kind of, like a number. And then based on the number, policy changes are made. I think it's a wrong approach because the number gives you some overview of what story might be, but there is a need for explanation. And there is absolutely a need for revising the criteria that we use to evaluate and assess. So the first thing I wanted to address is this kind of realization that one size does not fit all. So what takes place in any kind of evaluation projects is that it comes a team of specialists that they go somewhere, they measure something, and they come up with policy. And then we see that there are a lot of missed opportunities, such as iPads given to children without stable internet connection, or vaccines distributed many vaccines distributed to communities with very low trust into government institutions, and people are not taking them even though they are available. And the examples like go on and on and on and on and on. And those are basically those kind of missed opportunities and basing policy changes just on numbers and not on the local content. So I would say that connecting global and local, that would be really, really imperative. So like having some sort of assessment strategy, but at the same time consulting that with local organizations, taking into consideration spatial implications, demographics, so forth and so on. So even when we talk about the MIL cities, not all of the MIL cities are created equal. They're very different. What's going to work in Chicago might not necessarily work in Warsaw, let's say, or in Mogadishu. So having this kind of combination of global and local approach. Another thing I wanted to address is in any kind of evaluative criteria that we come up with, looking at them through equity lens. So again, like thinking seriously how to address structural barriers, because very often what we have, especially in educational sector, is like we have, the communities of color, have a lower educational attainment than whites or Asians. And this is kind of, considered to be a fact that you do not do anything with this. And this kind of, asking questions, but why? Why it happens? And what could be done to address that? It's much more important. So like, exactly, taking this kind of, equity lens, not being afraid to look back and see how the past actions, how they have implication on today. The third recommendation I would have is reassessing. I already mentioned that in previous question, like reassessing how we approach our students, learners. Focus also on their, mental health, focusing on them as in a holistic kind of perspective. They're not only coming to learn about the content, they're bringing the entire self with them and having this kind of, holistic outlook on our students while we are coming up with any kind of evaluative criteria. And in more on that kind of like local level, like especially for those who are educators, in our assessment strategies, cultivating the growth mindset, because I feel like there is a lot of focus on fixed mindset, such as, assigning one paper, giving a grade, that's it. Assigning one test, counting the scores, that's it. But really, this is not, in terms of innovative MIL cities and universities, that's not how it should work. We should promote the strategies that cultivate a growth mindset, such as allowing the revisement of the assignment, scaffolding the assignments, encouraging creativity, coming up with fair and flexible evaluation criteria, training faculty in assessment methods, like all of those kind of things that would need to be looked at. And I know that I gave just so many different examples, and probably that's a work for next 20 years. However, I feel like it's very important to address those in terms of the evaluation and assessment strategies. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna, not only for your suggestions, of course, but also for your opinion and also for your expertise and understanding the problem. So now I would like to ask Professor Narbona, what do you think about the evaluation of educational space in media literate city, and what main matrix would we use in MIL cities from your point of view?
Yeah, thank you. Well, about metrics is difficult to say something because we need to measure what is unmeasurable, sometimes. But I was thinking in the post-pandemic scenario, well, we all know that digital media and social media have introduced some new dynamics in not only in the cities and in society, but especially in interpersonal relationships. No? And these new dynamics are not always positive. I think we can think in our own families, no? And sometimes we can think who provides formation to educators, for example, the parents, no? So we can think as cities as groups made of families, which are the main actors of cities, no? And they are also the main educational actors, not only schools or universities, but families. Is where a person learns to be a good citizen. So, and we are having so many problems with in this post-pandemic, no, of people not knowing how to deal with social media, with well, the addiction to the internet, and well, so many problems with media literacy, no. So I'm sure you know this author Sherry Turkle, that well, she proposes that we need to start talking again, no, among us. So, and it's a very I think that her proposal will be very interesting in the long term, because well, society only will survive if we rediscover new ways to start relationships, social relationships, no? And well, a specific measure would be well, to know, to analyze, to study who's proposing formation for these actors, families. No, I mean, what I know is, for example, in many parishes, I have been invited to explain to parents how social media works, because they don't know, and they need to know to educate their children. And so it would be interesting to analyze who's providing this kind of education to families that are the future of cities. So this is my small proposal, but thank you.
Thank you so much. It's really very interesting proposal, and now you highlight very important actors of educational space in MIL cities. So, Felipe, now please, your opinion about the evaluation of educational space in MIL city.
Thank you so much. Of course. We have MIL city indicators. These indicators were formulated by me and my research team, of CREARCON of the University of São Paulo, and discussed with the growth of UNESCO experts, including Mr. Alton Grizzly from the UNESCO headquarters. It has 13 indicators and 245 metrics. But first, what is a metric? A metric is a measurement system that quantifies a trend, dynamic, or characteristic. In all disciplines, practitioners use metrics to explain phenomena, diagnose cases, share findings, and project future results. I agree with Anna, the Professor Anna Kozlowska. We need a qualitative approach to complement the quantitative approach, of course, but we need to know what is my place today, and where is the place in my place in the future. This is very important thing. I am in my research, the TOF CREARCON with TOF CREARCON of the University of São Paulo, propose some metrics to evaluate the education indicator from the perspective of the MIL cities. Some of them are, for example, number and percentage of actions in all institutes, schools, and faculties of the city that use their space to debate about the media and access to information. Number and percentage of teachers and professors who receive some type of training in MIL and anti-fake news. Third, number and percentage of startups focused on education in the city. Number and percentage of apps in the city that are used for educational purpose. Number and percentage of institutes, schools, and colleges that are there of the MIL approach and the function as MIL University Cities are in the city manuals on how to work and educate children and adolescents when working and studying at home following the MIL approach. Is another metric. How many information systems that work with the data of the students of the all cities course processed with artificial intelligence in order to improve the quality of teaching and courses offered are in the city educational policies, strategies, and plans to promote a change in the city's health culture. But this is my highlights about the metrics. But we can talk and research more about this. This point is very rich and very important to building MIL cities.
Dear Felipe, thank you so much. Of course, about measurement, we can speak endless. It's absolutely understandable subject, of course. But so in this case, I would like to highlight some your ideas, and in briefing of this part of the discussion or sharing thoughts and ideas, I would like to say that all of you told about very important things. First of all, so you told about the opportunities for educators as minimum, and the opportunities, so these the direction of measurement as the understanding of what educators must do in this case and how to evaluate their work also. Also, as Margarita told in the first part, she also told in the second part about the opportunities for women and about the entrepreneurship education as opportunity for women. So it's very important part of educational space in MIL Cities. Absolutely, I agree with you. Also we spoke about media ethic and about the several categories of actors in educational space, and we also spoke about the competition. Emanuele, I did not forget about competition between different MIL cities. It's seriously, it's very important thing, because in this case we can find new approaches, new opportunities, and of course new ideas. Also, Anna told about the global and local and connection between global and local. I think that it's very important thing and very bright thing, because the connection between global and local and balance in global and local, of course, it's very important in evaluation process, of course, and understanding where is the balance about it. Of course, very important thought was about the reasons of the problems and how to solve it. And of course, bright idea about flexible evaluation. I would like to support it, absolutely. Also as a flexible model of education. I'm really fan of it because my professional interests are in corporate education, and it's absolutely flexible models and absolutely flexible approaches. So during 20 years of my consulting activity, I saw practically new bicycles in any organization about the management system and about education system also. And of course, very important when Professor Narbona told about the interpersonal relationships, and it seems to me that it was a very bright and very important idea about education of educators and the measurement of this sector of educational space, and family as the source of education in social media system, for example. But in this case, I would like to highlight the idea that children now are the digital aborigines, so they born with gadgets in their hands, and sometimes it seems to me that children could be the educators for their family, how to work it and on what button it's necessary to put on, and for something else. And of course, as Filippo told about the quantitative approach and very exact metrics, indicators, and understanding of evaluation. So in the conclusion, of course, and going to the finish of our discussion, I would like to ask all of you with very short question. So, summarizing our discussion, I would like to ask you, what directions in the process of evaluation in educational space in MIL City would be more important in MIL City in post-pandemic world? So, shortly speaking, could you be so kind to say or to tell us 1, 2, 3 maximum directions in the process of evaluation or in the process of development of educational space? So in other words, we can say in what directions we will evaluate or we will educate in MIL cities in post-pandemic world. So briefly, shortly, with passion and emotion as during all our meal talk today. So, Anna, be so kind, please start.
Well, so it's going to be short, hopefully. So the first one, as you mentioned, the connection between the global and local. That would be, a very important, takeout that we need to consider. That in any kind of initiatives, we need to have some sort of general UNESCO metrics for MIL cities, but at the same time, we cannot forget of all of the stakeholders with local knowledge that could contribute to providing sustainable policy solutions, whether that will be in education, healthcare, and in many other areas. Second thing, I would say that rethinking the concept and philosophy of education, because there's a lot of, as you mentioned, you are Veronica, educator as well. So you know that some of the modes of thinking about students and how we evaluate their work are outdated and in need of changing. And the third thing I also wanted to point to attention. I know that the concepts of MIL cities encompass all residents of the city, but I wanted to bring to attention young people because very often in media they were portrayed as villains, as the ones who were infecting all the generations and spreading COVID-19. But in reality, they paid and will continue paying a very high price for the pandemic. And we already see, in metrics like the worsening state of mental health among young people, but we'll also see many other consequences in the future as the further data will emerge. and will have more experience. So I would say that this kind of, realization that we really need to focus on young people. That would be like my 3 most important, I guess, I don't know, directions that I would recommend. Thank you.
Thank you so much, really, for these passion and structural ideas, I would like to say. Okay, so Emmanuel, please, your ideas, your 3 directions.
Okay, thank you. As we have said, the evaluation of major literacy process in cities must take in account the evaluation of children major literacy, youngest also, and villages. We know that today, with the pandemic, we realize that in villages, people are using internet as they can, but they don't have no basics. So it is very important to focus our action on this kind of population. Also, we need to promote a generation forum in order to let young to help elders in the village to know how to manage information. If we do it, we can evaluate. We need also to select and prioritize a team or indicator we need to evaluate. And at the end, MIL City must create label hour to evaluate practice. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so Margarida, please, your opinion.
Yeah, I think we should think as an inclusive education where we can include youth, all different level of professionals. And because after the pandemic, we should think how to give great job for the people who lost their job during this period. So universities and schools should think the way we can, how can help all these people. This the first. And also, I would say to give more access to digital information, to information or to access to finance for women who wants to entrepreneur. And the last thing I think this to support from government to create new opportunities for people who wants to entrepreneur, to start up, because we will not have job for everyone who lost their job in this period. So it's time for universities, schools, technical schools, think how they can help or how can they create innovative ideas and opportunities for all those who are willing to work. That is my opinion from now on.
Thank you so much, Margarida. Okay, so Juan, please, your opinion.
Thanks. Well, 2 ideas. The first one is, I think we need to realize that society, well, we all know, but to realize even more that society is changing after the pandemic, especially because of the digital revolution, and very important values related to communication, for example, like trust or credibility, are changing the way they flow and the way they are inspired. So if we need to educate in information, we need to know that these values are changing, and to take that into consideration. And the second idea related with this one is, like Anna said, we need to support particularly some local stakeholders but some stakeholders that are based on horizontal networks, okay, like I said, families, or well, in my field, parishes or local associations, because vertical social groups are not working so well anymore, especially because of the digital revolution. So we need to take into consideration these horizontal networks of citizens, because in these groups, in these new horizontal ways of communication, ideas are flowing in a different way.
Thank you so much. Okay, so now, Felipe, please.
Oh, thank you. I would like to say that I agree with the ideas of our colleagues about the MIL education in the MIL cities. For example, with Anna, when she explained to referent consider ethical and racial difference in MIL education. With Margarita, talk about gender education with focus in the entrepreneurship, coming about ethical dimension and competition to learn in MIL. With Narbona about the importance of education of families on families, and MIL and in religious diversity in MIL education too. I think that the direction in the process of evaluation of educational space in MIL city will be, my ideas, the creation of a specific metrics for evaluation of educational space in MIL city. 2, creating apps to access to evaluate MIL city metrics. 3, creation of educational internet games. These are my highlights about this topic. And my final words are the words of Nigerian writer Chimamanda Adichie. She says, I am only a student. I am a student of the life. I am a student for the life. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, really. Okay, so now, of course, we can discuss it more and more, but unfortunately, it's necessary to finish now. And of course, first of all, I would like to say that today we discussed the MIL city approach by UNESCO, and we discussed very important sector in this media literate city. So we spoke today about educational space or educational sector. I think that we have outstanding discussion today because we have opportunity to see on the or to saw on the educational space from absolutely different points of view. We saw on the educational space from the social sector and from the communication sector, from the librarian sector, from media education sector, so from different sectors, from different points of view. And of course, we have new views, and of course, we agreed with those views which we already had. In this case, I would like to say that the educational space in any city, of course, not only in media literate city, is very important. I would like to say that in post-pandemic world, of course, now we have new stakeholders and new actors in this educational space. I agree with you that educational space is absolutely flexible now, and it's necessary to find absolutely flexible approaches and flexible approach to the measurement and evaluation to this educational city. And of course, I would like to say many thanks for our wonderful, outstanding and amazing speakers and experts. I would like to thank you for your emotions, for your passions, for your readiness to develop and to share your ideas and thoughts. Thank you so much. And now we are finishing our MIL talk about the educational space in media literate city. Thank you so much for our speakers, experts, our audience, our viewers, friends, and colleagues. Thank you so much again. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.